Hi, this is Gal Ruzika's show, and we have Joel Skousen on the line. Go ahead, Joel.
Hello, how are you? And is Tom Grashel on the line yet?
No, I'm going to be calling him, and we'll bring him right up. I'll let you know.
All right. So we'll start off talking about the election. Newt Gingrich is out of the race now, or at least suspending his campaign. That always means that they reserve the right to come back in should there be something going on at the convention. And so the presumptive nominee is is Mitt Romney. However, Ron Paul is still continuing to rack up a lot more delegates than the 80 delegates that the New York Times has allotted to him. And that's because they allot the delegates as if they have to stay with the mandate of the popular vote during a primary. But in fact, that isn't the way it's happening. In almost all of the delegate races, the conventions, Ron Paul is picking up almost half of the delegates. They may or may not be able to vote their preference for Ron Paul in the first ballot, depending on what happens with the GOP rules as they enter the convention. But certainly, that's what the Ron Paul strategy is. The powers that be are going to attempt to make sure that Mitt Romney gets it on the first ballot. And as I've said many times before, it's not because Mitt Romney is the one that the powers that be prefer. He's not an insider. They don't want him in the White House. But they have to control him now that he's going to get the Republican nomination. And so they're endorsing him. At least all the major globalists and compromised people have endorsed him, from John McCain to George H.W. Bush to Dick Cheney, who's the Darth Vader of the dark side of government. But in any case, it's going to be interesting to see if they're able to get Romney a first ballot win at Tampa. Tom, are you on the line yet?
I'm on the line. Don't know what our problems were there, but we got them taken care of. Let me ask you about that. The first ballot. Are they going to try to get him a first ballot win, or are they going to go for a brokered convention, and or have they given up on Newt Gingrich or Santorum or Perry or Jeb Bush?
Yeah, they've given up completely on Gingrich and Santorum, Perry, all of the crowd. And so it's important to the powers that be not to let Ron Paul have any more notoriety than he has. They certainly don't want a brokered convention where Ron Paul is dictating, and Ron Paul gets an awful lot of good press from this. And so I think they're going to engineer it so that Romney gets a first win on the ballot. And Ron Paul is going to do his best to stop that.
Yeah, let me just say something about that. It's not just a matter of Ron Paul getting good press. As you know, he's got a lot more delegates than anyone's saying from some of these previous states like Iowa and so on that are now getting their delegates. Louisiana, he just got 5 out of 6 of every, he got most of there. He got the great majority of the delegates there in Louisiana. Here in Texas, he is, in county after county after county, he is having, if not 50%, then the majority of the state delegates, which means that when we go to the state convention, there's going to be a real battle. It is not sure that Romney's going to win Texas here. He could very well have, and the establishment here has been torn between. As of a week ago, they were pushing to change the rules. That's what you do, right? To change the rules to where instead of a proportional representation, it would be a winner-take-all state. The problem is they're not sure that Ron Paul might not get if the Ron Paul forces, which are headed by Deborah Medina, right, by the way, at least she's helping with on a state level, and with all of the various counties here where we're working on our delegations. They're not sure that Ron Paul could not engineer, if he's organized well enough and is able to overcome the state leadership well enough, that he might end up, with all of the delegates from Texas if they do it. So I don't know now. I haven't in the last few days haven't looked to see whether they're still pushing for a winner-take-all or if they're going to leave it, at a proportional. The point is that Ron Paul's doing awfully well. And if we did have a brokered convention back there, it's not just a matter of good PR for Ron Paul. I don't know what those numbers are. I don't know anybody knows what those numbers are nationwide. But Ron Paul could possibly, I think he's got better than a snowball's chance, put it that way, on the national convention if it went beyond the first ballot.
Well, historically, Tom, the Republican establishment has done everything, including absolute illegal acts, to shut down Ron Paul if he's going to win a convention. Look what they did in Nevada. They literally closed the convention, turned the lights out, rather than Ron Paul win.
That's right.
The Ron Paul people tried to take it to court, and the judges sided with the Republican Party, said they can do anything that they want. And I think that's what's going to happen again. They just simply cannot allow someone who's against the globalist agenda as much as Ron Paul is to win, and they won't allow him to win. So it's just a matter of what this plays into the election, though, in the sense that if I'm correct that the establishment does not want Mitt Romney to win, even though they wanted to win the nomination, because they don't want Ron Paul to win, obviously.
That's right.
But if they do allow him to win the nomination, that means they've got to stop him in the general election. And I think that's what they're planning on doing. It's very interesting that there's a new election group that's financed by about $8 million from the founder of E-Trade. And it's kind of a populist site, but it's got money behind it. And essentially they're building to do an independent candidacy to break the two-party system. And they're going to get a lot of press. I have a feeling this is an establishment move to try to do a Ross Perot thing again to take away votes from Romney. And if they can't get Ron Paul to do an independent candidacy, they'll try to put somebody in as an independent to draw votes away from Romney. And it won't be hard after this gay advisor, Janelle resignation scandal hit the Romney camp. I mean, think about it. What was Romney thinking when he brings in not just an openly gay advisor who used to work for Bolton at the UN, so he's a neocon, but not only that, he's a rabid supporter of gay marriage. And Romney, of course, his position is not against that. And so when it comes to shutting him down in the campaign about his, promotion of the gay marriage thing, now they've got a big scandal on his hands. But what it's done, it's just scandalized the Christian community. All of the major pastors and the talk shows that are aligned with the Christian conservative community have really come out again against Romney because of they're just incensed that he would bring on someone in his campaign like Janelle, who is, not only openly gay, but an activist promoting.
I don't know the answer to the question. I don't know, of course, but never overlook the obvious. If stupidity is an adequate answer, don't look any further. It may very well be that someone convinced him to look. We got the nomination wrapped up. Let's start moving, try to get some of those votes that are in the center. That this would be someone that would attract some of the gay rights people who are a little bit still not completely satisfied with Obama here. Maybe we can get some of their vote. A stupid move, I think, but maybe that's what they were thinking. Did you get to Rubio yet? I mean, you're talking about Gingrich out and Romney in. Have you gotten to Rubio yet?
No, I haven't. But I want to finish with this Janelle thing. You know, when you look at Romney's statement, where he talks about he gave basically the standard statement by the Mormon Church. That we see nothing wrong with gays. As long as they are, maintain the conservative standards. And of course, the problem with that, though, is that when you give an opening, when you say it's okay to be gay if you're celibate, but you allow them to propagandize and risk and make converts, and you don't make that as part of the stipulation to be an active member of the church, for example, that you can't proselytize for something that the church condemns, then you've opened Pandora's box. You're, on one hand, playing up to the gays to make them feel like they're not discriminated against, but the gays are not just content to have, how should we say, equal rights in the sense of being able to contract to do what they want. They want mandatory acceptance of their gayness as well as status as married couples. And so I think that Romney is taking the wrong position by being soft on gays, by saying I can play both sides of the fence time and again, because he will not take a strong standard for conservative and principled positions. He gets himself into trouble with the very constituency, the Christian conservatives, which were softening and coming his way. And now
I agree. Assuming that he agrees 100% with the church position, if he did, he just needs to keep his mouth shut about it. He just needs to stay out of that battle as much as he can if he's forced into it, to say that, as long as people have their same-sex, I don't have a problem with that and so on. I do have a problem with approving them engaging in those activities and wanting government benefits and so on because of that. But only when forced to do that. He'd just be better to keep his mouth shut. He doesn't seem to be doing that.
Well, what it represents to me, Tom, is that he continues to accept advice from advisors on the globalist and the establishment side, and they're the ones that are pushing the log cabin Republican agenda. It means, hey, you got to hire a high-profile gay advisor.
You can't hardly find an area that he's not going along with the wrong side. I mean, whether it's globalism, whether it's our foreign policy and the Bush doctrine, the Obama doctrine of foreign undeclared offensive wars in the name of Pax Americana and so on. There's nothing. I can't think of an area where he's, is he ready to get rid of the Federal Reserve? Is he ready to audit the Federal Reserve? I think he said somewhere along there that he would agree to an audit of the Federal Reserve.
Yeah, but he's not going to push it. You know that he's not going to put someone like Ron Paul in charge of the Treasury, which would, of course, give the people fits. That's what Forbes magazine recommends. Put Ron Paul in part of the Treasury, and we'll solve this problem. Yeah. So Romney isn't going to save us. In fact, my greatest fear as a Mormon is that he'll stick it to us, and he'll destroy forever the Mormon conservative reputation, and he'll make us anathema to the rest of the conservative Christian community, and will justify their vilification of Mormonism forevermore. It would be better to have Obama do it to us because we expect it. It builds the movement when you have an evil person like Romney, but when you have a naive person like Romney who doesn't understand the globalist conspiracy, start to, give us the same thing that Obama was, this would be a tragedy for the church, for the state of Utah, at least as far as a conservative point. Naturally, the liberals, the so-called moderates who are liberal, will rejoice in this because they gain more worldly acceptance. But they don't realize that worldly acceptance comes with a price, and that price is the compromise of your principles. The dismissal of people like Stephen Jones, who won't tolerate anyone at BYU who will be critical of government. That's not good, ultimately, for the representation of the church as a vehicle sustaining truth in the world.
Yeah. While we're talking about Romney and Gingrich out, Santorum out, and so on, and Ron Paul's still in, what about that? How's that going to play out here? Where Romney has the pathway to getting a majority of delegates, it looks like. But on the other hand, this does. And are we to conclude that the establishment, the powers that be, have said, look, he's going to have enough. We're going to support him. He'll have enough for a first ballot win. We're not taking a risk here, knowing that this is going to get Ron Paul more. He's going to look better. He's going to get larger. He's going to have a lot of maybe 60-40 states, for example, and he's going to get a lot of the delegates that he might not have otherwise had, and so on. We'll talk about that on the other side of the commercials here. All right, we're back. Joel, this is Tom Drassel in for Gail and Joel Skousen, the editor of the World Affairs Brief. Go there to worldaffairsbrief.com. And Joel, are you suggesting that the Republican leadership establishment is confident enough they can get him a first ballot victory, that they can go ahead and pull out Gingrich, Santorum, not worry about any kind of help this may be to Ron Paul, because he will get some more delegates that he would not have otherwise gotten in these states where it's just he and Romney on the ballot?
I think what's going to happen, Tom, is that we're going to see when they hold the actual state conventions, that's when they'll either disqualify the Ron Paul delegates or force them to take a test out that they will vote for the person who won the popular vote in the primary. So I think we're going to see some pressure at the state level to undermine the Ron Paul delegates. The bottom line is that the Ron Paul people are going to be extremely offended at how the establishment has treated them, just like they were in Nevada. And I think we're going to see a wholesale movement to leave the Republican Party after we see what happens here. It's going to be devastating to our movement. And because of that, I think the establishment wants to foment that. They want to break off and split the vote so that Romney doesn't win the election.
Yeah, I agree. There's no question that they don't want Romney to win the election, that once he has the nomination, it's Obama all the way. That's going to be awfully interesting. But, all right, what about the Rubio deal? They're clearly pushing Rubio in here. That's going to be a benefit to Obama. It's a benefit to Romney. He's young, good-looking. People like him. Not any negatives. Got the Hispanic vote, and that's a huge number of votes. On the other hand, he's not constitutionally eligible to be president. Therefore, he's not constitutionally eligible to be vice president. But Republicans aren't going to be, Democrats aren't going to be saying anything about that because, and the Republican leadership's not going to be saying anything about Obama because of Rubio being in there. What about Rubio?
Well, Rubio was extremely disappointing. He's laid low. He's been a fairly good conservative up until he gave this speech at the Brookings Institution. And the Brookings doesn't invite anybody unless they're going to give a globalist speech. This speech was written. This was a very sophisticated speech that was superficial enough not to offend anyone. It was bipartisan. It played both sides. This was written by a globalist. Sure. And it told us that Rubio is completely compromised, and he's a 100%
neocon on foreign policy.
Well, he wasn't up until this time, and now he's become that. So somebody's got to Rubio and said, you know, we're going to make you a star, and here's your advisors. They're going to write your speeches. Senator Lieberman, the arch neocon of the Senate, gave the introduction to Rubio, and it was glowing. It was laudatory. This is very bad news, but it's expected. You know, the establishment doesn't push anyone for vice president unless they're going to either be like Dick Cheney, a handler to the president who controlled the Bush presidency, or someone who's simply going to pull in votes but will be a globalist and add pressure from the vice presidency to Mitt Romney to continue to stay on the globalist line.
Yeah, I was almost surprised that he didn't just go along with. He was an active pusher. I mean, he was energetic in his pushing the Bush doctrine.
That's right, and you know, he's obviously had a session with the powerful powers that be, and they've converted him. They wrote his speech for him. He gave it. He's happy about it. He's going to be a star. This is a worthless person in terms of our conservative movement.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Anything else on Rubio then?
No, I think that's sufficient. But it does look like.
Tell me what in the world is going on in Utah with Senator Hatch.
Well, this was an interesting piece. I had to write about it because Hatch, of course, did not want to face a conservative caucus as Bennett did, and go to the same result. I think if the church had not intervened on behalf of Hatch by giving a very high-profile announcement of everybody to go to those caucuses, I mean, it had the effect. I had several delegates from the caucuses who knew what it's like in previous years, that we were always the majority. Constitutional conservatives were the ones who really are activists in the caucus system, and that's why the caucus vote in Utah is much more conservative than a primary vote. When you add all of the moderates and the unthinking people into the primary, people like Hatch and Bennett always win. But the caucus system is delightful, just like the original constitutional system. When you have legislators choosing a senator, you're much more able to get a conservative result than you are by the general populace who can be fooled by the media. So,
Tom and Joel?
Yes.
We have Ed from West Valley that'd like to visit with you.
Is this a call-in?
Yes, uh-huh.
All right, we'll just hold off until I finish my train of thought.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
Yeah. What I'm saying is that the caucus system was overwhelmed by the moderates. The people who were in there told me, says, we saw stake presidents, counselors, bishops, and their counselors show up. They were all Hatch people, and they simply outvoted us. And that's precisely what Hatch had intended, and I think that's what the church leaders wanted, because they really do like Hatch. They like someone who has that charisma, that worldliness that is liked by the world and is sung praises by the world because they feel it gives us good press. It doesn't give us good press among the conservatives, of course. So, but Hatch didn't get his 60%, so he's got to go into a primary. I don't think there's a chance in the world we're going to overturn him in the primary just because Deseret News will endorse him and all of the moderates, the non-thinking church members will vote for Hatch.
Who do we? I haven't seen. Who do we have in the? Who do you have in the primary there against Hatch?
Well, he is, a pretty good conservative. He is a difference, a little involved to Hatch, but I don't think it's going to work.
Who is it?
We just don't have the vote. We're a maximum of 20%, probably more like 15% of the vote here in Utah. We're overwhelmed by moderate, unthinking Mormons.
Well, you've got 40% that are going to go against Hatch, probably. I mean, the ones who do not support Hatch, I take that back. You're right. That's the delegates, and they're going to be more conservative because they're more knowledgeable in this. We'll see what happens in the primary. But who is his primary opponent there? Is it Sherilyn?
No.
Did she make it? Who else was there?
Starts with an L. Is it Lilienthal or the name escapes me.
I don't
Tom,
know.
Do you know?
I don't know.
Lillenquist.
Lillenquist. That's what it is. Yes. Yeah.
Son of a gun. Well, that's
So,
interesting.
I'm ready for the caller if you are, Tom.
Yeah.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Tom, it's been a while.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Go ahead. What do you
Ed
got
from
going?
West Valley here.
Yeah.
Listen, there's not a lot to add to this pretty good analysis of what's going on to this conversation here. I do want to throw in my deal concerning the fear here about a third party or pushing Ron Paul out to where he's kind of forced to run a third party, or they have a controlled media third party as a ruse. I will say this. There is even a debate, Tom, at the old American Free Press newspaper. What Dr. Paul should do, stay in there and try and take over the party from within, the GOP, change it back from the GOP back to the Republican Party, or to fight it out with a third-party run where he's well-financed and will go the distance. Okay? The thing of it is, Mr. Skousen and you, Tom, don't fear a vote split putting Obama in there at all. You see, Obama, a lot of the young whites, unthinkingly, who voted for him last time out, they're onto it. They know that he's all for the internationalist financier war situation. Those votes for him are gone. He really does not have a support base, just the black class that they'd vote for anybody as long as they get their welfare check. Those people will still stand by him. The fact of the matter is that America is ready for a major, major change. I hear the talk on the streets, but they have nowhere to go. If they have a place to go there, believe me, there will be enough information out there from Ron Paul ads. It was Ron Paul that took out Gingrich. It was Ron Paul that took out Perry with his ads that ran strategically to expose those jokers. He will do that to Romney, showing him to be what Judge Napolitano got fired from Fox for doing, Tom, for running that video.
What a great guy.
You know what I'm saying here?
I agree that Ron Paul would do a lot better than people think that he might. I cannot imagine, however, that he might be elected as a third-party candidate. Joel, what do you give us your take?
Well, I think Ron Paul would do well head-to-head with Obama.
Yeah.
Right.
But I don't believe that Obama is in trouble. Remember, we've got 40% of voters are directly tied to either government employment, state employment, or welfare benefits. That's a huge head start, and those people are staying with Obama.
Well, Mr. Skousen, just remember, a lot of people sat out last time. I'm going to finish up with this. If Ron Paul doesn't get very close and make this a big splash, it's time for the samurai swords to come out, Tom.
We're getting there.
No. We've got to look at that, Tom. This is how angry some people are. This is out there. We're coming to that moment.
Well, it's the question is, we all agree, starting with Thomas Jefferson, ending with the Doctrine and Covenants, that when we're not protected in our inalienable rights, it is our right and responsibility as good citizens to alter or abolish our government. The question, when we're not being supported in our inalienable rights, the question is, when is that civil disobedience justified? When is, if you're one of this 86-year-old librarian that they use the Patriot Act, she's probably ready to get her guns,
Well, Tom,
those of us who have not yet had our unalienable rights abused might not quite be ready for armed revolution.
Well, let me say this.
I'm not there yet.
Yeah, but Joe Biden's son is the Attorney General of Delaware. He has stripped sheriffs there of their arrest powers. They're trying to take over with these county police forces and whatnot. It's happening in Utah. It's happening everywhere else, down in Texas. They're trying to federalize all law enforcement. We have to break that from happening. Bush really got it going. Clinton got it going, and now this guy in the White House now is keeping it going. Yeah, they're moving in on us. It is time to stand up.
Hey, appreciate the call.
Thank you, Tom.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Joel, Ed makes a fair point. I don't believe we're there yet, but we're getting real close. And every time we have some kind of abuse of our inalienable rights, I'm thinking, man, we're getting there. At what point is somebody going to have to rise up here? Got any take?
The question, Tom, is how many Americans actually believe that or think that or know that? And I say it's a very, very small percentage.
Sure.
You look at all of the people, he says he hears the talk on the street. It's not the same talk I'm hearing. When you look at the restaurants are full, you look at the movie houses are full, those people don't give a darn about our liberties. And they haven't got a clue that they're being lost. And believe me, they are the majority. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. When you had Britain taxing everyone, it was impacting about 80% of Americans. And so even though, the leaders were only a small percentage, you did have the support. You were really being impacted by the British government in terms of trade, and you were a long way away from it. It was easier to pull off. But you've got to have major dissatisfaction among most people, and these people are expert at making sure that people aren't generally dissatisfied. What will happen, in my opinion, is that we'll go slowly downhill, the strangulation continuing. They won't ever give us a single excuse big enough to justify a revolt. And then war will come, and literally everybody is in turmoil and social unrest. And out of war...
That's right. And yet you have to say that the powers that be, they have to be careful. They want to go slow, and yet they've got to do some of these things. They've got to push the envelope. They've got to throw some stuff against the wall and see whether it sticks. And if they, with one of these deals, whether it's drones killing Americans without due process, or they have to be careful that there's not some kind of a thing that backfires on them somehow or other, gets the press, so that you have a catalytic event that makes people, we were catalyzed with 9/11, and people talking the Constitution and God, and that lasted, of course, for 3 or 4 weeks before we started going back to where we were before. But it was catalytic events can make a big, big difference, and they do have to walk a fine line and go slow with this and so on. It's just that you never know, it could happen.
Looking at 9/11, that catalyzed it in favor of government. Everybody just laid down, except for a few of us, and bought the government line. To this day, people talk about when we were attacked. We were never attacked. It was a 100% inside job.
It's amazing.
Americans loaded explosives into those buildings. And that's been a myth, of course, about building number 7. But if it's not number 7, why not the World Trade Center buildings? The evidence is there.
It is out there there are no honest-hearted, thinking people who don't understand that 9/11 was an inside job and that it was controlled demolition. There are no honest-hearted, thinking people. I believe there are honest-hearted people out there that won't allow themselves to think about it. I believe there are thinking people out there who are not honest-hearted about it, and for their various reasons go along with it. But there are no honest-hearted thinking people. I know that's got to offend some people listening, but it is, I believe, the truth. Joel,
Tom, what happened in Italy, though, in 1992 is very instructive. It shows that even when everybody is convinced that there's a huge conspiracy where the mafia was buying off all of the political parties, they were all under their thumb, within 6 months the parties had all disbanded, reorganized with a new name, put new faces up there, and the powers that be were right back in power again. I mean, we cannot underestimate the power of these people to become wolves in sheep's clothing and to put on the mantle talks the talk, but don't walk the walk. And, if people are not savvy with the promptings of conscience, the warning signals of conscience, and that's why I'm very apathetic about hope in America, is because of the spiritual deadness of people's ability to sense that something's wrong. That's what really bothers me in America, including members of the church who claim that they have the Spirit, can't feel this. They can't even sense that this is a great secret combination we're dealing with, and these people have been warned.
Okay, now we're running out of time here. We've got, the Chinese betrayal of the Chinese dissidents, the FBI provoking terrorism, Obama pushing the North American Union again. But can we talk about the Obama lawyer admitting birth certificate forgery when we come back and then get to those others? We'll be right back with Joel Skousen, World Affairs Brief. All right, we're back. Joel, your choice. We got way more to talk about than we have time. Which do you want to go to?
Well, let's talk about the birth certificate issue. I don't think there's anything beyond 9/11 that gives you powerful evidence of a broad-based conspiracy that covers the executive, the judicial branch, the Department of Justice, and Congress than the issue of Obama's ineligibility to be president. Very clearly, his entire background has been hidden from the American people. His school records as a foreign student, his passport records, that he came in on an Indonesian passport. He's never been a citizen. And when they proceeded to forge a citizen, and they forgot to flatten the image, and they gave out the image with all the different layers in it, it was so easy to be proved as a forgery. Now, of course, the media has continued to boycott this story, but it has got so much traction that when it got to this court case, this most recent court case, and the lawyer for Obama just basically admitted this is a forgery, and therefore it ought not to be admissible, and it's irrelevant anyway. And the judge went on with it, but it was irrelevant. It was just incredible. One judge after another continues to deny the people a right to rule on the eligibility of presidents for the Constitution.
Yeah. Can you imagine? And the chutzpah to say, okay, we admit it's a forgery. The president, one forgery after another. This is the third forgery. You had the original certification of live birth, which was proven to be a forgery, and then you had another one that was not claimed by Obama, but this was his official one that they finally came out and said, this is the birth certificate, and now it's admitted by his lawyer as a forgery. What do you have? What does it take? Apparently, it takes a judiciary. Is there an honest judge out there? Is there an honest judge out there of the hundreds of federal district court and circuit court of appeals? And what would happen if it got to the Supreme Court?
Go ahead.
All right. Joel?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
We did think that there were a couple of honest judges, and one of them said that he was going to rule on this and he was not going to be, and then he ended up basically dismissing the case in favor of the president. So
just
got
overnight, literally. I mean, he was spanking the Obama lawyers and basically saying, I'm going to rule against you. You're going to have to, and then he came out and just, you couldn't believe it was the same person a day later or 2 days later. All right. So we're screwed again on this. What about what's happening with this Chinese dissident?
That's an interesting thought.
And by the way, for those, if Tim is listening, Tim, we can hear you.
It would be interesting to see what it is worldwide.
Yeah, I was wondering what that other
somebody
voice
has
was on there, Tom.
mic on there in the studio.
Sure.
Go ahead, Joel. What's happening? If you could bring us up to date on this Chinese dissident that apparently Obama is going to throw under the bus?
Well, there's been a betrayal of the Chinese dissident Chen in China who escaped to the embassy, and America played a very real part in talking him out of leaving the embassy under Chinese pressure, essentially relaying a threat that if you didn't leave the embassy and you persisted in this, that the Chinese government was going to deport your wife back to her home province and kill her. And so they agreed that he would be safe if he left the embassy and went back into the arms of China, into house arrest. He agreed to that and then basically said, I didn't do the right thing. They're going to kill her anyway. And so he wants out. He's really condemning the United States for betraying him.
Yeah. What happened?
Well, you know, the U.S. has always played ball with China, and they may talk as if they're concerned about human rights, but there's a real live example of what to do and embarrass China about human rights, and they won't do it. They have to engage, and engagement means giving in to China's demands. And China has learned to throw a fit, a tantrum, every time the U.S. starts to get tough with them. They're backing down in the Philippines. They should be out there moving those ships out. Instead, they're offering another ship to the Philippines. One more puny ship isn't going to make them be able to stand up to China, but it's a tokenism that is really bothersome. And there are people in the Philippines that don't want the help of the U.S. because they view it as an unreliable ally. That won't be there, as it won't be there for Taiwan when it really gets bad. China really starts to push.
Let's try to squeeze in now. FBI provoking terrorism. What's going on?
Well, something that was really shocking is the New York Times came out with an article at least talking about 2 or 3 examples of where the FBI had provoked terrorism and then arrested these relatively disgruntled but innocent people, Muslims, after they had supplied them with the explosives and goaded them into doing this particular act. I thought it was unique that the Times, which is the biggest establishment newspaper, would even broach the topic. Now, they can do that, and I've often said in my analysis of the media that they can do this as long as they don't make it a drumbeat, as long as other pundits don't pick it up, it'll just die, and then they can say, oh, we covered that. Well, they didn't cover the big thing. They didn't cover about the underwear bomber. They said that was legitimate. That was the least legitimate of terrorism. This poor guy was mind-controlled, drugged out of his gourd, had to be led into the airplane, past security, and it was just incredibly, a false terrorist event. And, of course, what they wanted to do was to, justify putting in these millimeter wave scanners, which they had stuck in a warehouse, so they could, Chertoff, who was part owner in the company, could make millions off of it. And they just needed a false flag terrorist event to justify that. And that's exactly what they did. Same thing with the people who tried to come on board with liquids. That's why we're all being checked for 1 ounce liquids at the airport. Complete false flag.
Tommy, Joel?
Yeah.
We have Cameron on the line and John on the line.
Okay, let's take a call.
Okay, here's Cameron. Are you still there, Cameron?
Yeah.
Yeah, Cameron, go ahead if you can ask a quick question and let Joel respond.
Well, I just wanted to make a quick statement, make sure that people don't think there's a lost cause yet. Orrin Hatch, the Orrin Hatch deal, they basically turned the caucus into a primary because 4 years ago, only about 23,000 people showed up to caucuses. This year, over 105,000 showed up. So basically, it turned into a primary. And I think that if the people that are diligent against sending back Orrin Hatch actually go to the primary and try to recruit people, don't recruit people who are against Orrin Hatch. Don't do the thing. It's your patriarchal duty to go to a primary. It's your patriarchal duty, if you don't want Hatch back in there, to find the people that will vote against him and then talk them into going to the primary. And I think he can still be defeated at a primary because I believe we've already had one primary and he only got 60%. So I think with a little effort, a lot of the people that showed up to the caucuses will go back to their lives, and there's a chance that he can still be defeated in a primary.
Well, let's hope.
So,
I mean, bottom line is you're right. You don't want to give up. Do everything you possibly can.
I mean, people need, if you don't want to see Hatch back, you need to go out, talk to your neighbors, find out the ones that are against him, and make sure they show up.
All right, good deal. I appreciate it, Cameron. Thank you. Joel, what were you saying?
Well, it takes a good deal of knowledge, specific knowledge about Hatch to be convinced that he's a betrayal. You've got to be very, very conservative. Most Mormons think that they're conservative, and they think Hatch is doing just fine. So that's a tough sell. Try to convince them that he isn't. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't try. We should follow what Cameron is saying. I'm just saying that the establishment did what they did, and the fact that we went from 23 to 115 or whatever it was, 1,000 means specifically that they loaded the caucuses with mainstreamers, and those mainstreamers are going to overwhelm us at the primary as well.
Yeah, that is incredible, and that's what. Okay.
Okay, we have John online.
Go ahead, John. You got a question?
Go ahead, John.
Go ahead, John. Quick question for
Hey,
Joel.
guys. Yeah, Joel, I was looking at the Ron Paul forums, and a lot of the delegates that are for Ron Paul were on there were saying that, the media is saying that they have to vote in that first vote at the convention for Romney because that's what they were delegated for, but it's going around on the forums that they can actually abstain from that vote and not put their vote for Romney during that first vote, so it would force the brokered convention. Do you know if that's true or not?
That is correct. They can abstain. I'll tell you, that would just really put a fit into the establishment if they did that, and I think that's a good strategy. I'm not sure, how effective it will be, but if a third of the delegates at the National Convention didn't vote, it could be very dicey for Romney.
Let me just throw in my 2 cents worth on here, and so that may be true. That may be technically true. I have not seen it happen. What generally happens is you go there, and nobody casts their vote. The head of the delegation, might be the lieutenant governor or someone like that, will say, Utah cast so many votes for Romney or for whoever, and if it went to a second ballot, then you'd have to start counting heads and so on. But it may be that is just done just because they cannot vote otherwise on the first ballot, and so they go ahead and do that. If someone wants to say, no, I do not want my ballot cast, that may be true. I just don't know about it. I hope that you're right on that. And
you are right, Tom, though, that the chairman speaks for the whole group, and just as he has in many other state conventions, they can just walk out and refuse to listen to you when you protest what they say in the name of the group.
Yeah, it takes a lot of strength. In this case, Ron Paul is the best organized of anyone that we've ever had, and it takes a lot of work on the county and the state convention level, and then at the national convention. We'll see how things play out here, but I say to people, don't give up yet. I mean, I'm not going to vote for the lesser of two evils anyway. I may as well, play out the hand, and we're doing that here. We have in our county, we have 70 of the 116 delegates, or at least 70 that we know of, are Ron Paul delegates. That is true in county after county after county. I'm not sure that at the state convention here that we're not going to end up with a good enough fight, and that they will not be able to hold back the Ron Paul delegates because we'll have some strong leaders. And it may very well be that Ron Paul, it is possible, could win Texas because of his strength in organizing and among the delegates and so on. All right, hey, appreciate it. Let's go on, Joel. I don't know how much time we have here. If we're going to have another break, but let's go for it if we can. The New York Times. I'm sorry, not the New York Times, but what is going on with Obama and the North American Union? It looked like they were going to skip that step, North American Union, European Union, and Asian Union, and just go straight to world government here, and yet he's out pushing the North American Union again. What's going on?
Well, he's not doing it publicly. He's signed another executive order, yet another executive order, instructing all of the agencies of government to start to harmonize U.S. regulations with international regulations. And what this is, it's a backdoor approach to being able to blend law and regulations in Canada and Mexico with the U.S. Obama's spokesman said openly that we're working behind the scenes to increase the number of harmonized regulations and laws between the U.S., Canada, and Mexico as we speak. And so Obama has not made any open admission, his advisor has, that this new executive order has been applied and is being applied already even before it was signed as an executive order, as a means of implementing the North American Union. So it's coming. They just have to work the proper criteria.
And let me say about this, what he's doing here is absolutely unconstitutional. Executive orders, you know, they're like executive agreements, which is like a treaty that a president makes. He just did one here with Afghanistan, but he probably didn't go too far on that one. It's just not approved by the Senate. It's just an agreement. He's saying, you know, as commander-in-chief or as president, I am going to do this, I'm not going to do this, I'm going to... And he can get away with that. Executive orders are a different kind of a thing. He's telling his people, supposedly, how to carry out the law. But when he's telling people to harmonize with other laws that have not been passed by Congress, that's unconstitutional. And yet he is doing that here with the promoting the North American Union. I think we're out of time, Joel. We're going to go to commercials. We'll see you next month.
See you with you, Tom.
Thanks, Joel.